Hello, 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 and welcome to Paddle Forward podcast where we navigate life's currents. I'm your host, Anacani Walters, and I'm sitting in the dark, literally probably 6:30 in the morning, and I'm waiting for my son to wake up. So I have a few minutes that I'd pop on and record this before I forget. But it's been a heck of a week, and this time of the year, I truly feel like I am particularly sensitive or just aware of certain things. And this past weekend, I ended up spending like pretty much half a day, I felt like, with a friend who was allowing me to borrow their oven to finish baking 20 dozen cookies that I needed to make sure I made for an event that I was kind of in charge of for some single Marines that are overseas spending their holidays alone. And it's just our attempt to try to bring some holiday cheer, whether they celebrate Christmas or not, by just literally giving them home-baked goods. 'Cause most of them are not going to probably bake anything. And they do have a kitchenette, like, in their kitchen area, but most of them just eat in the chow hall. And then, of course, they can buy cookies, but it's not the same when somebody makes it from scratch and it's made with love and you can feel it and it reminds you of home and it makes you feel warm inside. And so this year we just didn't have as many signups because we don't have that many spouses actually, um, or people are on vacation and things like that. So I just wanted to make sure we had enough. And I only have a stovetop oven. Well, I was literally baking like 9 at a time, and it was just so nice to be able to bake like a whole dozen on one sheet in a regular oven. But on my way to my friend's house, I noticed a homeless person. And, I always truly believe, you hear that one saying, never judge a book by its cover. Never judge a person until you walked a mile in their shoes. And I truly, truly believe in both of those, mostly because there's been so much that I've been through in my own life that either people don't know that I've gone through, or at the moment when I've been through some of my travels, they had no idea. And it's so easy to assume and to place our own judgment on people, but we just never know why they're in certain situations. And that's what I, want to just share with my listeners about homeless people. And I know, like in the States and stuff, there's some people that just refuse to give money to homeless people. They feel like there's already maybe enough out there, like shelters and soup kitchens, and that's what, their taxpayers' money goes to, and they don't want to give homeless people money because they'll just take it to use drugs or, alcohol and all of these negative assumptions. And I was homeless once, and I lived in the streets of San Diego for almost 6 months. Many people don't know while I was homeless. A lot of people couldn't even tell I was homeless. And I was just looking at this man while I was at a stoplight. And, he had sweatpants underneath, really long basketball shorts. He had socks that had holes on the back of them. His thong sandals, because we're in Japan, so they typically wear socks with sandals, or you could tell they were like worn down. I mean, they were like paper thin flat. He had like 5 bags. One of them was a plastic grocery bag that he had filled with plastic bottles. And his clothes were not, they were, grungy and dirty, and he got to the same stoplight, and he was flexing his leg, like, bending them back and forth, and it almost looked like he was dancing. But I knew that it was either that he had maybe been walking for a while, he could have been cold, all kinds of stuff. Oh, excuse me, but I'm taking a morning stretch and it is making me yawn. And what I do remember was noticing as the cars were passing by while he was waiting for his walking light to turn green, that he was smiling and it looked like he was dancing. And it just reminds me of like how much I appreciate sometimes people in those situations because they remind us to be grateful for what we have. Because clearly he has like little to nothing and still finds a reason to smile. And I remember those days when I was homeless, like it literally takes me back to when I was sleeping in the car on the streets of San Diego and remembering those awful times of having to take showers in the public beach shower heads, like the ones that you use to wash off after you've been at the beach to get the salt water and the sand off of you before you go home and then take a real shower. Well, I use those showers that are outside at the beach to take my regular showers. I didn't shower every day, but I did try to make sure I showered every other day because it was just awfully cold. And, I had my soap and I brushed my teeth in the public bathroom at the same time. We always made sure that we slept by the beach just to make sure that we had access to the bathroom if we had to go to the bathroom. Um, and I remember the times when I had to seriously consider like what was more important to have lunch or to dinner. And when I'm talking about, the meal itself, it was nothing special from like 7-Eleven, like a hot dog or a hamburger. And just the feeling of just being so happy and enjoying every bite when I got to eat, especially if I had to skip a meal. Or the first time that I actually got to sleep lying down on my back instead of upright because I actually had a bed to sleep in that night. And these small little things that we take for granted. I sleep in a bed every night. I sleep in a bed with a son that I never had and a husband. I have the ability to turn on the AC when it's hot if I need to. I have a refrigerator full of food. And I usually tell people when I'm trying to ask them to find something to be grateful for, in my yoga classes, I was like, look, if you're going through a really hard time, it doesn't have to be anything spectacular. It can be being grateful for the basics, roof over your head, food in your tummy. And I say that because I've been in places in my life where I had neither. And they may not understand the significance of what I'm asking them to do because they don't know my backstory, but it's truly powerful if that's really the only thing that you can focus on being thankful for, like right now, because you're just going through your own trial. It's still pretty significant. It's still pretty powerful. And there's so many people out there that still don't have those basic necessities. And so even if that's where you're at, that's the capacity that you can bring yourself to, it's still a thing. And don't judge people. Like I always try to give homeless people any money, whether I think they're going to use it to help themselves or not. It's really not my decision. And there's so many people out there struggling with mental health problems. And there's just not enough resources from that perspective. It's not like they're just some regular Joe that completely, you know, right in the mind. They can make conscious decisions. They can make good decisions. They're not going to be putting themselves in danger or others. And they can have any resource. They can go into any, soup kitchen. A lot of these people have mental health problems they may not even be diagnosed with, but it's keeping them from being able to access the right medication. Like a lot of medication is super expensive, and sometimes it can take months depending on where you live. Sometimes it's taboo. Here in Japan, it is very taboo to talk about anything mental health, even if it's as basic as just having anxiety or depression. It is not something that they talk about. It is frowned upon. It is like, do not air your dirty laundry out in public. And I remember, having a yoga student who, commonly in some of my yoga classes, I do a lot of somatic work, and sometimes I read from a specific book that sometimes just feels like that book is like voodoo to be talking to you. And for some people, it's having to hear the right words at the right time to let them release whatever they're holding on to. And they tend to break down, they tend to cry and have a complete release at the end of my classes. It's very common and it doesn't surprise me anymore. And I'm now know how to be ready and supportive for those students, or just to make sure that I respect their privacy and make sure that other students respect their privacy and their need to be comfortable enough to cry in public. Because for me, I know that that was a really hard thing to do. And this specific student happened to be, a foreign student. And they came up to me at the end of the class and then they started to break down and they started to cry, like, really hard. And I knew that culturally, like, touching is not appropriate, but I also knew from the medical perspective, like, the nurse in me knew all she really needed was for me to give her a really strong hold, to put pressure on certain pressure points to help her nervous system relax. And then she would, let the emotions kind of settle down. And so I took the risk. I was like, okay. And I warned her before. I was like, I'm going to hug you because I think that that's what you need right now. And I know that it's not something that you guys normally do, but I'm going to go ahead and do it. If you really don't want me to do it, stop me. And I just like slowly put my arms around her and I bear hugged her. And it worked, It was like, oh, yeah, this nice release. And it's actually something that I commonly have to do to my son sometimes when he gets into his toddler moments and his terrific twos. And he is like so overwhelmed with emotion that he literally does not know what to do but be destructive, throw things, scream, kick, bite, throw himself on the floor. And sometimes it's literally like, give me a hug. And he's like, no, no, mama. And I was like, I know you don't think you need one, but you really do need one. So I just grab him and I just hug him. I was like, hug me back, give me a big bear hug, scream as loud as you need to, squeeze me because I was like, because you're so angry. And he's like, no, no. But after like a few seconds, he starts to like relax his tension. And then he'll like tighten up his whole thing and scream. I was like, there you go, get it. I was just like, get it all out, all that twitchiness. And then he'll tell me his whole sob story about why he was so upset. And it's the cutest thing ever. But let me let you know, as a parent, it took me a while to get to that point of being mindful enough to like have that be my first reaction, as opposed to like being upset and whatever inappropriate reaction it is. Um, because I'm just like, I had my adult hat on and I'm expecting, I was like, that is not the right way to behave. And getting upset because I'm getting kicked and I can't control him. He's like, this long thing of like slime. Like, if you ever seen those things, it's the weirdest thing ever. It looks like a rectum, literally. It's like this long tube, and it's like jelly inside, and you squeeze it, and it like the inside pops out, and it's like this never-ending thing. You continue to squeeze, and it just like rolls out on itself. And I don't know why people found it so fascinating. For me, it was like, that's gross. It looks like a rectum. But that's what he is, like, sometimes if you don't hold on to them the right way, it, like, literally will fall out of your hands because 'cause they'll just flip out, and that's what my son's body reminds me of because it's like I try to hold on to him, and he will just, like, use all his weight and slink out. It's, like, so crazy. But back to the moral of this story, I'm getting sidetracked, is to just not judge a book by its cover. Like, just give from the heart, give it with good intentions. Sometimes just that, giving it with the right energy, with the right intentions, instead of maybe some preconceived, biases like, I'm going to give this and thing, but I'm going to do it resentfully because they're probably going to go buy alcohol or drugs. They're not going to actually like buy food. And then you give it to them with attitude. And that's how they receive it. The money receives it that way or gives it back to that. Like I'm learning about money EQ, and money has its own feelings. Money carries its own energy. And when you give in that presence, it's not probably going to end in anything positive. Why should it? You are basically giving it a whole bunch of reasons, a whole bunch of energy of why it should not. And so if you give it from the heart and give it with the intent that, like, I really hope that this person uses it to really help themselves. I really hope that they use it for some food. I just really hope that it helps them in a good way. And smile and say, here, happy holidays, or I hope you have a good day, or you're amazing. Don't forget that. Something positive. That in itself can change the course of someone's life. Listening to the right words at the right time from the right person. And I can tell you that from personal experience. I think about all the times where like, what if somebody would have said this to me at that time when I was that hungry or that sleepy or that broken. And I truly believe that there's so much power that we have in ourselves to change the course of someone's life by simply just being kind. And nobody knew that I was homeless except for the people that I shared it with. And I wasn't like I wasn't working. I worked 2 jobs, and I did that because I wanted to get out of my situation. I was too ashamed and embarrassed to ask for help, or actually more like too proud and stubborn. Um, I refused to ask for help from my family, and because I didn't want to hear "I told you so" or some negative like thing. And I also, you know, was doing it because I was trying to get out of my situation. And I was like, in my mind, this was temporary. I was not going to be living like that. But not everybody has that drive. Not everybody has that spark, that purpose. And I've always felt like I was made for something huge. And I sometimes go through life wondering if I'm ever going to figure out my life's purpose. And sometimes I feel like maybe my life's purpose is an accumulation of all these small little nuggets in my life that I've learned and that I'm trying to pass on to others. Maybe that is ultimately my life's purpose. I always thought I was going to be a grand gesture of like curing cancer, becoming some amazing, famous, smart doctor. And a lot of that is just because some of those are childhood dreams. Some of them is just because I have certain realities of like limitations that I had put on myself of not being able to read, not being smart enough, not reading fast enough, being a little bit too old when I realized that I couldn't do all these things and then tried to improve myself and like what the point, I'm gonna be like 80 by the time I finish med school and my residency and actually become a doctor. I'm gonna not be able to like cure anything at that age. But I'm pushing along and I'm trying to just listen and be silent, learn to listen because I know I can talk to the universe, I can talk to God and tell them all the things, but I'm not very good at listening for the response. They're like, we've been trying to respond to you. We've been trying to tell you the answers to the things that you've been praying for, but you're just, too busy or to listen, or you don't sit and actually listen and learning how to be a better conversationalist and understand that it's a two-way street. And I'm like, I just feel silly sitting there waiting in silence for this answer from the universe. But I know people who have gotten it. And I'm like, okay, I just need to practice. I just need to practice. So during the holidays, it's extremely more like important to me. I'm hypersensitive to it because it's cold. And I know what it feels like to be so cold and hungry and tired at the same time. And it's awful. And regardless of what they do with what I give them, nobody should have to live in those conditions. And a lot of the times, this is when people get desperate enough that they do seek shelter, that they do go to the resources, and then they're not prepared for sometimes the influx. And a lot of those places get booked out or they don't have enough room for everybody. And it really is that first come, first serve. And so just be mindful of it. If you see somebody out on the street that's, asking for money, know that it is not the easiest thing to just sit out there public with a sign asking for help. If you have the problem of asking, like if you were in a situation where you had to come up with like $5,000 that you did not have, how easy is it for you to just think of family members or friends to ask for money? Like, what am I going to say? What if they let's just say, something you're about to lose something. Your business is you're about to go you know, out of business or something where it represents possible failure on your side. And that's how you see it. And now you have to figure out a way to ask people that you may or may not know for the money and explain yourself and defend yourself. It doesn't feel good. It does not feel comfortable. For most people, they avoid it. And for some people, they would rather fail and not have anyone help them. For a homeless person, for someone out on the street who you don't know their story, it is incredibly hard. It's incredibly embarrassing to be out there and ask for help, to be out there day in, day out with a sign, asking for somebody to help them, just as it would anybody else. And they're having to do it in public, and they're having to do it at probably their lowest point in their lives. And again, you do not know the reason for how they got themselves into that situation. For all you know, it could be the most tragic story that you've ever heard. And it is not your business to ask how they got homeless unless you're there asking because you truly care and you're getting to know the person. And even then, it may not even be appropriate. That shouldn't really matter, especially if you're trying to be kind and you're trying to do it from a gesture standpoint. So just know that, I never thought I would be in that situation. It happened, and it is my grounding point anytime I feel like things are getting out of control, things are not going my way. I start to feel like resentful or disappointed or a failure. And then I look back at the time when I was homeless, when I had nothing, when I was out on the streets, and I look at what I have and I'm like, if anything else, I have come so far. I have so much to be grateful for. And just because some of these things aren't turning out the way I wanted them to, it does not mean that I can't have a smile on my face today. So I hope you're doing fantastic. I hope you're doing awesome. I know during the holidays it can be particularly lonely, even when you do have people. Maybe it's because you're missing someone important in your life who's no longer here with us. Physical, know that they're here always with you in spirit. They're always touching your heart. They live through you because they've embedded their greatness and all the things that made them special because they spent so much time with you. And it's your job to carry that specialness on and be happy when you think about them because that's what they would want you to do. And if you're really going through a hard, hard time, know that it too shall pass. I'm cheering you on. You've got this. You're amazing. And if nothing else, find just the little things that you can be grateful for and happy for to keep the momentum and look for the answers, learn to be silent, and ask for help when you need it. As always, stay fabulous, stay beautiful. Remember that you have the power to steer your own course. And I will catch you in the next episode.